You remembrancers say you want to see war, says Horus Lupercal. Well, here it is. The best Warhammer book I've ever read, hands down, fight me. This one was traumatizing, uplifting, inspiring, sickening, saddening, and ultimately everything I wanted and more than I imagined it would be. Dropsite Massacre by John French was beyond expectations in every way. That doesn't mean it is a perfect book or that it lacks any flaws. But Holy Emperor of Mankind, this one will not only blow your power socks off, it will straight up knock your dick in the dirt. Or should I say, your cyberdong in the blood, mud, and ash of Isstvan V. This book puts the war in Warhammer, and in many ways, the war itself is the central character of this story. Yes, there will be spoilers in this video, so if you don't want to know what happened and you're going to read it, bail out. Because we're going to talk about everything in this video, and even if there are things we thought we knew, the new details make them a lot more interesting, that's for sure. So there are many revelations in Dropsite Massacre, and many events that unfold a lot differently than we thought they would. But I have to say, to put this one in a proper light, I find most Warhammer books to have a good mix of depth and fluffiness, to be a fun ride but also have a message under the surface, sort of like Rambo First Blood Part 2. Or an action film that isn't completely dumbed down like a Seagal movie. Dropsite Massacre is a lot more like Saving Private Ryan. This one is brutal and a real tearjerker. You have literally got to be a heartless psychopath not to get a bit choked up by this one. But there are some moments that are just absolutely epic. There's some very intense fights between people and groups that you just wouldn't think would happen. And there are infiltrations, subterfuge, and intrigues galore. It really wasn't as cut and dry as I thought it was going to be. Horus and the traitor forces had to put all their faith in the 4 legions that would reveal themselves as traitors on Isstvan V. If they didn't come through and absolutely succeed, then Horus himself would be lost. They're playing chess with the Imperium and baiting the trap by dangling their king, leaving him as a hanging piece. The plan is dangerous, absolutely ballsy, and in a lot of ways is pure genius, though it requires the traitors to suffer heavy, and I mean much more than necessary, losses. So what do we get in this story? We get treachery and betrayal, sure, but we get put right into the pilot seat of attack aircraft, behind the scope of the sniper's rifle, in the armor of a traitor infiltrator. We see the wrath of Primarchs and the loyalty of first captains. We're put right in the turret of the lead Fellblade tank in a formation that is engaging a Titan Legion. We experience the struggle of a Princeps against a very stubborn Titan and see the death of Titans, Knights, and other huge lumbering beasts of war. Allies of Horus, some, but sacrificed willingly and approvingly by the War Master. He knows they could challenge him later. Horus is callous, cruel, and completely pragmatic. But that is all just icing on the cake. There are some seriously deep lore reveals and subversion of a few expectations. And some of the things that happen are just absolutely worth talking about in their own videos, but to me it sort of breaks down like this. It opens with a rather dramatic statement, almost like you've just opened up the 3rd edition 40k rulebook or something. It is a time of legend. Mighty heroes battle for the right to rule the galaxy. The vast armies of the Emperor of Earth have conquered the galaxy in a great crusade. The myriad alien races have been smashed by the Emperor's elite warriors and wiped from the face of history. The dawn of a new age of supremacy for humanity beckons. Gleaming citadels of marble and gold celebrate the many victories of the Emperor. Triumphs are raised on 1,000,000 worlds to record the epic deeds of his most powerful and deadly warriors. First and foremost amongst these are the Primarchs, superheroic beings who have led the Emperor's armies of Space Marines in victory after victory. They are unstoppable and magnificent, the pinnacle of the Emperor's genetic experimentation. The Space Marines are the mightiest human warriors the galaxy has ever known, each capable of besting 100 normal men or more in combat. Organized into vast armies of tens of thousands called legions, the Space Marines and their Primarch leaders conquer the galaxy in the name of the Emperor. Chief amongst the Primarchs is Horus, called the Glorious, the brightest star, favorite of the Emperor, and like a son unto him. He is the War Master, the Commander-in-Chief of the Emperor's military might, subjugator of 1,000 worlds and conqueror of the galaxy. He is a warrior without peer, a diplomat supreme. As the flames of war spread through the Imperium, mankind's champions will all be put to the ultimate test. Well, calling Horus the brightest star has me second-guessing my sanguineous Lucifer theory. Then there's the ubiquitous, in-universe historical quote that opens so many books, especially Warhammer novels. Come now, draw near, and hearken to what travails and revelations are set before you. Mark here the princes, ripe and bright with ambition, all silver and silk, and here, walking in their train, all the bloody mummers with fingers cut bound in their hair, and there the weeper with their soot shadows and ashen tears. All come now and see the path of grave soil where we make this moment pass. The Reaper's Call from the Cycle of Dying Kings, Terran, 23rd Millennium, author unknown. Then after that quote, the meat of this story is served. And this is a dish served most cold. The book is broken into 4 parts. I guess we can consider them to be acts. Part 1 is called Decrees of Execution. Part 2 is called Fragmentation and Consolidation. Part 3 is Planet Strike. And Part 4 is Ceremony of Slaughter. I think those sections are named in a way that is pretty self-explanatory. The first part starts out with the Astropath sending the message that Horus has turned traitor and where he's at, the details of what was known on Isstvan V. Rogal Dorn sends the call out from Terra for his brothers and their legions to go get Horus and kick his ass. But the conversation between Rogal Dorn, Constantine Valdor, Genetia Kroll, and a few others before the message was sent really struck me. And this is Kroll speaking in sign language. This matter was decided when the news arrived, she signs. The order could have been given hours ago. There is no choice whether Horus has anticipated our response or not. What you are all struggling with is not action but acceptance. Acceptance of the fact that Horus is a traitor and that we are going to have to kill him. Him and many more. You all believe that we have more agency than we do. Reaction, action, both are the wrong understanding of what is happening. And the correct understanding would be, asks Dorn, no one has control of what is happening now. Not us, not Horus. She pauses, looks at Malkador. This is one of the longest series of signed communications she has given in a long time. A storm has its grip on us. We should not think that pulling the rudder can change the direction of the tide. Malkador nods. Thank you, he says. You are welcome. Valdor smiles briefly. Dorn's face is stone. And when they send it, they are burning through astropaths like crazy to send this message out. Just pushing them to their limits. Just throwing logs on a fire, using them up, consuming them, and on to the next batch. Really sets precedent for the throne gobbling up psychers for 10,000 years straight. And they don't mask the message. It is open for anyone to hear, including the traitors. Rogal is such a badass, he wanted the traitors to know that vengeance was coming for them on swift wings of death. But he should have remembered that Space Marines shall know no fear. And Primarchs, well, that's another matter entirely. Now the messages get to Ferrus Manus, Corvus Corax, and Vulcan, who are straight up pissed. By the time they get to talking to one another, Corvus and Vulcan have somehow agreed that Ferrus should lead, and he kind of takes it upon himself to be the de facto war master of the Imperium, now that Horus was not a holder, in his eyes, of an imperial title. This is the biggest mistake in the history of mankind. Ferrus is pissed off at Fulgrim. He was still recovering from their fight where Fulgrim took Forgebreaker upside his head. He's the only Primarch who can claim they've seen the treachery firsthand, and so they concede to let him lead. And let's step out of this for just a second. Ferrus is a terrible general. Read Feet of Iron if you don't believe me. He projects that he's great at it, but he's actually awful and just runs right in without thinking and gets stuck in a quagmire. Usually only enduring because of fate or luck intervening, along with just being stronger and tougher. Wars against the Iron Hands were often wars of attrition when they could have easily have been won by other means. And that is Ferrus Manus' biggest character flaw. That's how he leads. He thinks he's a hammer that can break any anvil. And this ruins the legions and sets Horus up as the victor, ruins the galaxy and turns his father into Space Lich, after costing him his head. Vulcan and Corvus are suggesting strategizing, of making a plan. Ferrus says that any moments taken to plan are moments wasted. He lets his anger and passions get the better of him and proves he's a total bitch, in my opinion. Vulcan should have led that force, but it still wouldn't have done anything to save them, probably. Fate is fate, and the Emperor and Malcador sent those boys to their doom. See, the board is set. This was all planned to the minute detail. Okay, so the other legions, the ones that are with Horus but have yet to be revealed, they all show up too. The Alpha Legion, the Word Bearers, the Iron Warriors, and the Night Lords all take part in the communiques between the fleets. The Loyalists have no idea, but we do, obviously. But John French totally goes out of his way to crank up the tension. You can really feel the suspense build and the pressure increase. It's almost overwhelming at times and is masterfully done. I write horror novels and spy thrillers, and I wish I could crank up the suspense like this guy. Totally top notch. And this is where we see that Alpha Legion is deceiving both sides. It's pretty awesome, actually. The conversation is horrifying. How Horus and Alfarius speak, they use psychers who are demon hosts and are being consumed, basically, by the power that allows them to communicate. Usual Chaos Space Marine craft, just really early on. It gets pretty gnarly, though. But the cool part is that Alfarius has Omegon right there with him as he talks to Horus. And Ingo Pech, the Alpha Legion's first captain, is also there. But Horus doesn't know of the existence of Omegon, and the twins are speaking in a way that they're finishing each other's sentences. Horus can't tell the difference. I was reminded of Zaymot and Tomax from G.I. Joe. But they are also communicating privately with one another with sign language. Ingo Pech tries to keep up but loses them after a bit. But yeah, they did not want to take part in the massacre. And they thought that they could get word of the treachery out, but like always, the Alpha Legion sabotages the Alpha Legion. The twins are concerned ultimately, we see by the end of the story, with balance. They want to control the narrative, in light of what the Cabal showed them. They want to force a new path, a third head of the Hydra. And they recognize they have to work in both directions, often against one another, to make sure that neither of the two dark futures they were shown come to pass. And well, we'll get to it later in the video, but by the end of the book, Ingo Pech just may have become my single favorite Space Marine. I don't know, he's up there. Now when we look at the communiques between the Alpha Legion and the Loyalist Legions, we see that the Hydra is literally telling them, hey y'all, we're walking into a trap. I can feel it. I'm really good at lying and subterfuge, and I know a trap when I see one. Something must be done, but to follow Ferrus Manus into the fires of hell, into the jaws of death itself, is dumb. Alpha Legion is straight up honest about it. Whoever was communicating with the Loyalists may have just been Omegon then. But yeah, Alpha Legion was in a very difficult spot. They had to make sure that they didn't fall to Horus's guns themselves, and though they wanted to both sit it out and to warn the Loyalists, if they broke ranks with Horus, at that point it would mean their own demise. So since they couldn't overtly tell the Raven Guard, the Salamanders, and the Iron Hands that they were being betrayed, the Hydra did hint that, hey, again, there's a very strong possibility of treachery. It's one of the great tragedies of the Dropsite Massacre, and of Warhammer. Now so much has happened and a shot has not even been fired yet. But the first real fight breaks out on Isstvan V after the traitors have received Rogaldorn's distress call, and they are making their war plans. Fulgrim is teaching his strategy class and using a pointer and a whiteboard basically and being pedantic and self-indulgent, and as Angron is hearing the plan, he loses his shit bad. Angron steps to Horus and is about to throw down, right at the planning meeting for the massacre of the legions that oppose them. He calls Fulgrim a straight-up coward and throws that accusation in such a way that it lands at the feet of the War Master as well. Angron is the most based of all the Primarchs. He is literally a man of honor above most everything, if not everything, especially treachery. His whole method of coming around to accept what they are doing is exactly what you'd think it would be, and he literally has to be fought and subdued to have reason talked into him. But Angron would have rather let the loyalists know of the betrayal and had a head-on fight than ever stab a fellow warrior in the back. His whole motto is wounds to the front, and states that stabbing a warrior on the back is cowardly, and he's no coward. Mortarion steps in between Horus and Angron, puts his hand on Angron's chest and tells him to step back because he's acting just like their father, that his reasoning will get more of their side killed, while Horus reasoned that the Emperor forced their betrayal, so is ultimately responsible for any backstabbing, and that the Emperor was going to backstab all of the legions, and since they were all as good as dead anyway, it was a charitable action basically to kill them all in an act of betrayal, because that act would mean the legions under Horus would live on. Otherwise, ultimately under the Emperor in the future that did not include Space Marines and Primarchs, they were all dead. Better to betray them now, as they had all been betrayed already, and it would save lives on their side. Now it is fun that Angron hears this, but still won't accept it and goes off on a tear and destroys a bunch of Emperor's children that are stationed at a communications relay outpost. He goes to try to warn the loyalists that while they're coming for a fair fight, over half the guys with them will turn on them. So yeah, he kills a few of his nephews. Karn shows up and tries to talk sense to him after Abaddon has a duel with Karn to get a chance to talk to him about talking to his father Angron. And it goes bad. Angron tries to kill Karn, who's totally gimp. Remember, he was left impaled on the dozer blades of a tank on Isstvan V, left for dead. He can't even interface with his power armor and is unarmored. Just as Angron is about to crush Karn's throat, Horus steps out and beats his ass. It wasn't easy, and Angron got some good strikes in, but after getting whooped by his brother, Angron finally saw things for what they were and noticed for the first time that Horus had a point. He grudgingly, hatefully, self-loathingly accepted what they were going to do. Karn has a great arc in this book, and we get to see the moment he is elevated from battered, broken, near corpse of a useless washed-up Astartes to the Red Butcher himself. And it is pretty awesome, but that comes near the end of the book. Once Angron has gotten it out of his system, Horus retires to his abode in the fortress, and they just dig in to receive the impact of the strongest punch ever thrown. Now, there are far too many plot threads and characters to mention all of them in this video, but nobody who shows up in this story has an irrelevant arc in any way. Everything is super interconnected, and it is really cool how one moment you might be reading about someone hearing artillery shells fired at them, and the next you're reading from the perspective of those who fired the rounds. It does a great job of really drawing you into the conflict and showing both sides. Nobody's really accepting of it, really, ultimately, on either side. It's a deed that is seen as necessary, but not one that anyone actually took pleasure in, except the word bearers and Cor Farron, it would seem. But it is seen more as a grim task. At times, the traitors were on the back foot and felt like the loyalists were going to destroy them. There were heroic rallies on both sides. But the one thing this book does better than any other book in the Horus Heresy series, I'd say, is it shows us how the traitor Primarchs are now, ultimately, whether they wanted to be or not, villains. And that is not what Angron wants to be, nor Alfarius, definitely not Omegon. Corvus Corax, the Dark Prince Demon Raven of the Warp as he eventually becomes, is super cool to me and always has been. But after seeing the pure heroism of his actions on Isstvan V and what came to pass in the end, it is no wonder he ended up so broken. The treachery, the betrayal was beyond even his demigod emotions to deal with. I love this. But when it comes to sheer ferocity, sheer violence of action, pure will to end the enemy, I don't know if anyone on the field that day was as full of righteous wrath as Corax. He whets his blade many times over, and pulls off acts of heroism and valor that are beyond what I thought were possible. Corvus may just be right up there with Sanguinius. I'm serious. I know people like to underestimate him, but he's literally wrath, death, and fury made flesh. It's hard to describe, but Corax is on another level altogether. And I feel sorry for anyone Chaos aligned that he managed to catch up to, and can't wait to see more of him in the future. Vulcan goes the fuck off. And I mean, by the time he hits the ground, they are already taking heavy losses, and he just runs right up to the front lines and right through it. Vulcan becomes such a blender that they literally had to nuke him to even slow him down. There was going to be no stopping him. Vulcan, as always, calm and steady, just butchering his way through rank upon rank of Death Guard. Comes face to face with the Lord of Death himself, Mortarion, and their fight is absolutely brutal. We get a lot of Primarch action in this book for a book that really doesn't focus too much on them. But it is some of the captains that really steal the show, in my opinion. We get Abaddon in action, though a lot less than you'd think. We get to see Karn go from broken gimp like the Noble's kid in Space King 2 to the Hound of Khorne that he becomes. To go from totally useless to absolutely god-tier slaughterer. But we see a side of him that is introspective and regretful, who feels like he should have died and wonders why he didn't. I find that I like Karn more as a character every time I encounter a story or bit of lore with him in it. And I love how this book really shows us other sides of him than just what we know that he eventually becomes, or what he was before. It's a great way to bridge the gap from Isstvan V and nearly dying to decapitating Saint Celestine as he slaughters his way toward Cassar. We see Iron Hands and Salamanders get betrayed by Alpha Legionnaires, but we also see Ingo Pech, the Alpha Legion's first captain, do something extraordinarily heroic. While aboard the ship of Admiral Clave of the Novus Solar Auxiliary Battle Group, Ingo Pech puts a bolt round through the head of the Iron Warrior's Delegatus. This is as they were arriving in the Isstvan system, and he tells Clave everything that is happening and how they are betrayed. Clave assumes that Pech is trying to recruit him and his vessel to the cause of the Lupercal, but he's wrong. Pech is like, yo, you can make a choice. You can go to your inevitable death and try to warn your allies who are going to die either way, or you can live and float in the void, waiting, powered down. Pech tells Clave that there may be survivors that will need rescuing, but it is too early to go see as the killing is still happening. Clave actually sees the logic in this and wants to know why then, if the Alpha Legion is with Horus, would they go out of their way to warn him, to tell him of the treachery and try to save their enemies' survivors if there were going to be any? And this is where Pech made me love him and the Alpha Legion both 10 times as much as I already did. But he's just like, hey, we tried to avoid this, but unfortunately it had to happen and we weren't able to stop it. And since it is happening, and what it is a massacre, their only choice was to let it happen or be massacred themselves. But while they couldn't stop the massacre, they could assure that it did not become what Horus actually ultimately wanted it to be, annihilation. That those legions, the 10th, the 18th, and the 19th, were needed, were their brothers and shouldn't be outright exterminated, that balance must be maintained to assure the best future for all. So Clave seems even more confused, and he knows they could kill him at any moment, but he knows that he'd rather save lives and make sure the broken Salamanders, Raven Guard, and Iron Hands endured than to throw away his life and those of his crew. Clave asks Ingo Pech the same question Namatjira asks Alfarius before the Hydra executes him in the book Legion. Though Pech does not fire on Clave, it harkens back to that moment. Why are you doing this? And the answer just sent a shiver up my spine as Pech gives the same answer as Alfarius. For the Emperor. Just phenomenal. Pech does show up at the end with Omegon, posing as Alfarius, to meet with Horus during their victory dance. And that made me wonder if it was actually Alfarius that was posing as Pech on Clave's ship. Just saying they could have pulled that off too and it wouldn't have been a problem. There are times when traitors in the midst of loyalists turn on them and slaughter them, and times when it happens in the opposite direction too, like with the Alpha Legion killing the Iron Warrior's Delegatus so callously and unexpectedly. The Daciere and the whole Titan Legion make a mess of things at one point, and we get to see a whole fleet of Salamander's Land Raiders and other tanks take them on in what was pretty much the written equivalent of an extremely wacky yet exciting game of Legiones Imperialis or Epic Warhammer 40k, I'd imagine. I never got into Epic. Lots of destruction though. The book makes sure you know the characters, what drives them, what they fear, what they love, who they wish was beside them, and then kills them off like it was a George R. R. Martin book. I mean, there were like 20 Ned Starks get beheaded level deaths in this one, and each one of them represented tens of thousands of similar such demises. I cannot express how happy I am with this one, and if this is the direction they're leaning into, then we're going to be in for a real treat with the Scouring series. I mean, my holy Emperor of Mankind! It is a rare book indeed that makes me exclaim something aloud. And this one had me gasping, nearly crying at one point, definitely a bit choked up, but it is the only book ever that made me jump up and yell. I did, literally screamed, "Fuck yes, holy shit!" I was ready to flip an SUV over with my bare hands like Hellboy or the Hulk or some shit. If my impulse control was even slightly less than it is, my laptop would have gone through my TV, and not in anger or sadness, but just pure excitement and adrenaline. Like really, a lot of military sci-fi draws you in, and I've read quite a bit of it out there, but Warhammer books seldom make me feel like I'm right there. Usually more like an observer or someone listening to the recounts of events by a remembrancer. This book, Dropsite Massacre, literally made me feel like I was right there in the trenches at Isstvan V. Like I could smell burning flesh and promethium practically. Just exceptionally well executed, 11 out of 10, if that is even possible. If anyone out there knows John French, please tell him that Alexander Romanov considers him the GOAT after this one. Like, it is mind-blowing. Hours later, after reading it, after putting this script together and typing it all out, my heart is still in my throat. My pupils are still dilated, and I'm still ready to duck for cover. If I close my eyes, I see the burning wrecks of massive war engines and a sea of bodies as far as the eye can see. I can't recommend it enough. I suggest you get this one, it's just phenomenal, and I can see the community just picking this one apart over the years to come, as there are surely the seeds of many new plot threads sown in it as well. And oh yeah, there's one more thing I want to talk about in this video. Khor Pharaon. When he arrives with the word bearers, he is just happy as hell to be killing the one dude who's stoked on it. He likes when they kill his dudes too, because to him, it is all a ceremony, and the ritual of it all requires the blood of both sides. A mass human sacrifice. And my gut tells me it is to the Dark King, ultimately, though he probably thinks it will manifest through Horus. But he points out some fun things. First, that the 8 traitor Primarchs gathered don't realize the significance of there being 8 of them. They don't realize they represent the 8 domains. He talks about the etheric dominions of chaos, the 8 aspects, and the 4 gods who are actually all one, which is an undivided expression of chaos. It ties a lot of the things I talk about on this channel together and puts a nice, neat little bow on it all. Brutal beyond brutal, just heartbreaking yet inspiring. The highs are so high and the lows are so low. This book is a roller coaster ride through the grim darkness of the far future. And I have to say I am very happy right now with Games Workshop, Black Library, and the setting in general. I've never wanted to know the details of any battle more than the Dropsite Massacre on Isstvan V. Not since I first read about it in White Dwarf decades ago. It has always been the moment when everything changed irrevocably. When Marines would be put on a path where they fight one another from then on in perpetuity, ostensibly. And Khor Pharaon notes that. He states it openly. Well, that about wraps it up. Expect some upcoming videos, probably dealing with specific aspects of the battle, like the Titans, the orbital strikes, the trench fighting, the dogfights in the sky, etc., as we could talk about the details all day long. Now remember, I don't always put a bolt round through your forehead, but when I do it for the Emperor. Thanks for watching.